In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can build your very own hydro dipping rinse tank just like this. Stick around and I'll show you how to do it. Welcome to ATF Hydrographics and another edition of our video series we call Just the Tip, where we give you guys at home great tips and tricks on how you can become a better DIY hydro dipper. And today's video is brought to you in part by our channel sponsor, One Hit Wonder Paint Company. If you're in the market for your very own DIY hydro dipping kit or you need some hydro dipping supplies, I definitely recommend you check these guys out. And if you want to save some money on your next hydro dipping supply purchase, then you will need to hang out to the end of the video because that's where I'm going to give you the coupon code. So if you've been hydro dipping more than about 2.5 seconds, you probably already know that you have to rinse when you get done dipping. But if you're new to hydro dipping, let me just go ahead and take a quick second and explain to you what I'm talking about. When you get done dipping something in the tank or your Rubbermaid tote or whatever it is that you're using, when you pull the part out, it's going to be covered with this slimy stuff. It kind of feels like catfish slime. If you've ever touched catfish, you know what I'm talking about. But that slimy stuff can't stay on the part. It has to be rinsed off. And if you don't rinse it off, what can happen is it will dry eventually, and then it can cause a lot of problems when you go to put your clear coat on later. If you want to know some more specifics about actually rinsing and temperatures and all that kind of good stuff, hang out to the end of the video. We'll talk about it there. But for right now, let's jump into how to build one of these rinse tanks. So the first thing you're going to need is something to hold water. A lot of people use different stuff. I chose to use this 300-gallon Rubbermaid stock tank. You can buy them at Tractor Supply for a couple $100. I'm sure there's some other places that sell something similar if you just look around, but this thing is perfect for my needs. So it's not a true circle. It's actually kind of oval shaped. So on the long ends, it's about 6 feet wide. And then on this side, it's about 5.5 foot wide. Now you can put this on the ground or on the floor if you want to. I like mine to sit up a little bit higher because I'm a little taller and I don't want it sitting around on the floor and I want to be able to move it around. So I just nailed together some 2x4s, made me a little frame and put some casters on it. So that way I can roll it around shop, move it outside if I need to clean it out. Pretty simple, nothing extra fancy here. The next thing you're going to need is some type of pump. I like to use these little submersible sump pumps. You can get them at like Harbor Freight. I'll leave a link to one on Amazon you can buy. The one I have is an old Utilitech. You can buy these at Lowe's. The size that you're looking for is a 1/4 or a 1/3 horsepower. You can use a 1/2 horsepower pump if you want to, but it is way overkill for this size tank. You do not need that much pressure. A 1/4 to a 1/3 horsepower works just fine. From the pump, you're going to want to run some PVC fittings into the pump and then up to a little union so that you can continue on with the rest of the system. What size PVC pipe that you use is going to depend on what size the inlet hole is for your particular sump pump. Now on mine, I added a union right here, and this is just a quick screw together PVC union, so that way if I ever need to take this apart, make a repair, clean it, I can do so. From the union, I ran it up to a PVC 90 and then into this T, which splits off into two sides. Now I don't use this all the time, but you can plumb in a little garden hose fitting so that you can put a small little curly Q garden hose and one of these little spray nozzles on there if that's something you want to do. It's not required, but it's something I like to have just in case. Another thing that's not required is going to be these two ball valves. If you're running a smaller horsepower pump, you probably don't need these. I added them just in case, and I'm glad I did because the first pump I had was a 1/2 horsepower pump and it had way too much pressure in this system. So I use these two valves to close down the pressure so that these spray nozzles don't spray all over the place. And then from your two ball valves, you're just going to want to make a big circle of PVC all around your tank. I use these little 45-degree bends at each corner. That way I could just kind of measure it out. And guys, this does not have to be super duper precise. We're just rinsing water here. It's not a big deal. Take your 45-degree piece, take your long pipe, mark it with a Sharpie, cut it where you need it, and glue it on. As long as it makes a complete circle at the end and it winds up back where it started, it'll be okay. The next thing you're going to need is these little ball spray nozzles. I will leave a link down in the description box below to where you can get these on Amazon. But they're very simple to install. Here on the back side, they have an O-ring and a little hole. You just measure what size this hole is, pick a drill bit that size, drill a hole into your PVC pipe. It simply just fits into that hole, and then this locks it into place. And there's two really cool things I like about these spray valves. You can open them up like this all the way, and I'll show you how they work. They have a little ball right here, and this ball fits inside this socket right here. Push that into place, and then this actually screws on to hold it into place. But if you ever need to adjust it, all you do is just loosen this up a little bit, and then you can move the nozzle to whichever direction you want it to spray, up, down, side to side, anywhere. and then lock it back down into place. The other thing I really like about these nozzles is to spray a flat fan, so it kind of goes out flat like this and then kind of spreads the further it goes. So it's not really like a jet stream and it's not really like a shower stream, it's kind of in between. And then once this thing is up and running, you can take these nozzles and move them wherever you want. You can go from side to side, you can focus them all right in the middle. If you're only doing a small part, you can do whatever it is that you like and whatever fits your needs the best. And when you go to order these little spray nozzles, make sure that you order all of them from the same place and from the same manufacturer for the same type of pipe that you want to use. They make them in various pipe sizes. They make them from 1.5 inches like this, 1 inch, 3/4, and on down. When I originally built this tank, I had it all plumbed with 1.5 inch PVC pipe, and I did not order enough of these nozzles to go around. I have a total of 20 now, but I started out with only 10, and I quickly realized that that was not enough. So I ordered from another supplier because this supplier was out of stock, and the ones that I got only fit 1 inch PVC pipe, which is why you see my tank has 2 different size PVC pipes on it. 1.5 inch here, and I had to step it down to 1 inch on this side so that I could make the other 10 that I bought actually fit. Mostly because it was easier just to go buy new PVC pipe than try to return these and wait for the new ones to come in. And I was kind of in a rush, so I just made it work. Now, I have mine hooked up to this on-off switch. I am not an electrician, so I'm not going to tell you how to do this. You do this at your own risk. Don't call me when you electrocute yourself. You'll also notice that I have another switch over here, and that is going to be for my PID controller, which goes to the heater that is in the tank. Now, the PID controller that I use is just one of these cheap Inkbird plug-in ones from Amazon. I'll leave a link down in the description box below where you can get one of these, but it has one for cooling and heating, and I just have the heater plugged in right here to the heating side. Now for the heater itself, I just use one of these cheap stock tank heaters. These are for like keeping water frozen, I guess, when you're watering cows or whatever. And it works fine. It's got a little rust on it over the years. I think I've had this one for about 5 years. Now that heater is not at all necessary. You do not have to have a heater in your rinse tank. The only time you'd absolutely have to have one is if the temperatures where you live and where your rinse tank is going to be at gets below freezing. You want to make sure that this water does not freeze. Where I'm at here in Georgia, it very rarely gets below freezing, so I don't use it very often. Now down here inside my rinse tank, you'll see I have this little white grate in here and this piece of PVC pipe. All this is those clothes hanging racks that you buy like by the foot. I think they sell them in like 6-foot lengths, 8, 9, 10. They sell them at like Lowe's and Home Depot, and all I did was just cut it down to size, and then I used some zip ties to just zip tie this stuff together, and that holds the parts that I'm trying to rinse up out of the water. And then this little PVC pipe stand, all I did was just put some PVC pipe together so that if I put a really heavy object on here, it won't actually bend this and make it sit down in the water. And that's all it is just to support this so that it doesn't sink. Last and certainly but not least, I hung up some of these command strip little hangers right here so that I can put a towel, bam, right there so I can keep my hands nice and dry when I'm going back and forth from the rinse tank to the dip tank so that I don't have to worry about my hands getting wet and then touching film and then my hands actually sticking to the film when I don't want it to. And then of course, if you're running an actual legitimate business, we have laws and stuff that we have to follow, so make sure that you have a wet floor sign anywhere near this stuff because the floors may get wet. Now feel absolutely free to use my design if you want to. I've been using it for about 5 years now. It works great. I have no issues with it whatsoever. But this is absolutely not the end-all be-all of rinse tanks. You can adjust this design, use a different tank, different nozzles. I've seen people use shower heads on them. There's nothing wrong with being creative. Make whatever it is that you like and suits your needs. Now, as far as the size of my tank goes, it fits my needs perfectly. I very rarely do really big parts, but when I do, or if I have something that's really long, all I do is just kind of lay it over the side, rinse half of it for 5 to 10 minutes, and then flip it around and then rinse the other half and let this part that's already rinsed just hang out at the outside of the tank. No big deal. Now the tank wasn't really hard to build at all, just took a little bit of creativity, and it's not something you absolutely have to have. You are more than welcome to rinse stuff off in your kitchen sink using just a regular shower type nozzle if you want to do that. The reason I built my tank is because I do a large volume of parts and I'm usually in here dipping and rinsing for a long period of time. I don't want to be standing here holding a nozzle all day long. And it takes me a lot less time because I don't really have to stand here and watch it. I can just stick the stuff in there, turn it on, let it rinse for as long as I need it to, and then I'm done. As far as time goes, you can't over rinse anything. Nothing bad is going to happen if you let it sit in there for 10, 15, 20 minutes. The time that it takes to rinse is really going to be depending on the temperature of the water that you're rinsing in. So like in the summertime here, it'll be 80, 90 degrees in the shop sometimes, and the water temperature is going to be in the high 70s. It may only take 2 or 3 minutes to rinse. Sometimes I'll leave it in there for 5, 10 minutes just to be sure and make sure everything is rinsed off of it. In the wintertime, it may get a little bit cooler in here, and it may take up to 10 minutes to rinse something. It all just depends. So once you've been rinsing for a few minutes, just take your hand and lightly rub across the outside of the part, and you'll be able to feel. If it's still slimy, then you know you need to rinse longer. If all the slime is gone off of it and you can't feel any slimy parts on it at all, then you're good to go. You can take it out and let it start drying. As far as temperature of the water goes, it doesn't really matter what temperature the water is. Like I said, the warmer, the faster it'll rinse, and then the cooler, the longer it'll take to rinse. But you never want your rinse tank water or the water that you're rinsing with to be warmer than the water that you dipped in. If you want to know a lot more in depth and see a really good video about water temperatures in hydro dipping, I will leave a link to a video that I did right up here that will explain it all to you. But my ideal water temperature to actually dip in is around 90 to 92 degrees. So as long as the water's below 90, then it should be fine. I do not add any anti-foam or any of that stuff to this water. The only thing I will put in it is a little bit of bleach, maybe about a half a cup every couple of weeks, and that is just to keep it from smelling when it's sitting stagnant for a long time. But other than just regular old tap water and a little bit of bleach every now and then, that's all that ever goes in the rinse tank. And mine does have a drain valve right here so that I can attach a garden hose and drain this outside if needed. I usually change my rinse tank water out about every 3 to 4 weeks. If you'd like to see more in-depth videos covering all the various topics in the hydro dipping industry, you should definitely check us out over on Patreon, where we host our online training course. I've got a link to our online training down in the description box below if you want to check it out, where we do videos like this every single week on Patreon. I want to give a big thank you to our channel sponsors for helping support us and what we do here at All Things Fun Hydrographics. If you'd like to see the coupon codes for all of our channel sponsors, I've got them down in the description box below. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's roll the bloopers. If you want to save a little bit money, you want to save a little bit money, Don't lean on that. Another edition of our weekly, it's not weekly, it's, I don't even know what week it is anymore. Oh my God. Purchase a one-hit wonder paints up. Oh my God, these lights are so bright. I'll leave a link to it where you can get it on Amazon. Ah. If you want to save some, why is this so difficult? And last but certainly not least, last and certainly not least, there's not a complete circle, it's more like ovally type shape. Is ovally a shape? It's an ovally shape. I use just one of these cheap plug-in, the plug-in ones that, yeah. I use these little 90s. These are not 90s. What are they? What is it? 90? 45. If you want to save some money on your next hydro dipping purchases of things, and